Client refuses to pay $8,000 for IT work. I file a mechanic's lien, get $15,000 cash, and walk away with the last laugh. I was beginning my side business doing IT work for small companies, and word of mouth turned out to be the best way to attract clients. Entrepreneurs tend to network with one another, so I was able to land a few good contracts. Tony, a business owner, contacted me after hearing that I had done successful work for someone else. He wanted me to help his company transition from using an accounting service to handling it internally. Tony had been paying a percentage of their profits to process payments, purchase orders, and billings. He hired an accountant to work on a new product, and I proposed a simple setup that would cost around $3,500 for the workstation. But no, Tony insisted on a full server system with all the bells and whistles, bringing the total cost to $8,000. Not including other annual services like VPN and remote management. I went ahead with the job, which involved setting up the server, UPS, and firewall. The equipment cost $500, and my labor charge was $500. I finished everything in a weekend and confirmed that the system was working with Tony, who verbally approved it. Client refuses to pay $8,000 for IT work. I file a mechanic's lien, get $15,000 cash, and walk away with the last laugh. Part 2. I promptly sent the invoice on Monday, with the understanding that Tony had 1 week to pay. However, 4 days passed with no reply or payment. When I messaged him to confirm if he'd received the invoice, he told me the server wasn't working. He claimed that my work was a total failure and that he was better off without it. I offered to come by and fix whatever problem there was. When I arrived, they refused to let me in, claiming that someone else was coming to fix the issues. I informed them that they still needed to pay for the equipment, and we could discuss my labor afterward. Tony was adamant about not letting me near the server, and I was growing frustrated. 20 days had passed since I ordered the equipment, and my distributor needed payment within 45 days. I considered taking the issue to small claims court but then remembered something a friend had told me, about applying a mechanic's lien. Client refuses to pay $8,000 for IT work. I file a mechanic's lien, get $15,000 cash, and walk away with the last laugh. Part 3. I researched the possibility of filing a mechanic's lien and was surprised to find that it applied to IT work in my area. So, I filled out the paperwork and filed the lien. To my shock, there was no court date required, just proof to the clerk's office and a constable's visit. The next Tuesday, I met with the constable to enforce the lien. Tony tried to refuse us entry, but after the constable explained the situation, he became visibly upset. Inside, the server, UPS, and firewall were all exactly as I had left them. Tony mocked me, claiming I couldn't remove the system because it was bolted down. What he didn't realize was that the equipment wasn't permanently attached to the rack, it was just mounted. After unscrewing a couple of bolts, I had everything packed up and ready to go. Tony started panicking, threatening the constable with a lawsuit, but the constable stayed calm and even went as far as unholstering his firearm when Tony refused to step back. Tony's attitude completely shifted, and he realized that I wasn't backing down. Client refuses to pay $8,000 for IT work. I file a mechanic's lien, get $15,000 cash, and walk away with the last laugh. Part 4. After taking my equipment and leaving the server rack behind, I received a call from Tony claiming that I had ruined his business. He threatened me with legal action and insisted that he had no revenue coming in for a week. His accountant couldn't do anything because she had no access to the accounting software. I told Tony that I was no longer interested in working with him unless he paid me for the equipment. He offered to pay me $8,000 if I reinstalled the server that day, but I informed him that the contract was null and void. Instead, would be returning the equipment to my distributor and wiping the storage, making it impossible to recover any of his data. I then had an epiphany, prompted by a conversation with a friend. Why not charge him double to get the equipment back? I messaged Tony, apologizing for my earlier behavior and offered to reinstall the equipment, this time, at a price of $15,000. Client refuses to pay $8,000 for IT work. I file a mechanic's lien, get $15,000 cash, and walk away with the last laugh. Part 5. Tony immediately called me, agreeing to the $15,000 price, though he haggled for a discount. I stuck firm, and we agreed that he would pay me in cash before I started any work. He arranged for payment by the following Friday. On Friday morning, Tony and his daughter showed up with $15,000 in cash. I counted it in front of them, making sure everything was in order. Then I unloaded the equipment, reinstalled the server and firewall in less than 20 minutes, and powered everything up. I told them to test it out and that if anything was wrong, not to contact me. I'd already tested everything, though, so I knew everything was working perfectly. Despite the entire ordeal, I walked away with the $15,000 I demanded, and Tony learned the hard way that trying to screw over a contractor isn't always the best idea.